The diamond necklace felt cold against my skin as Xavier's icy stare cut through me. $10 million to disappear from my life, he said, sliding the check across the table. I laughed, pulling out my phone to show him the ultrasound. You might want to rethink that offer. I'm carrying your triplets. His face turned as white as his expensive suit, the glass of whiskey shattering as it hit the floor. The great Xavier Stone, brought to his knees by 3 tiny heartbeats he never knew existed. I studied the check in front of me, $10 million with my name written in Xavier's precise handwriting. $10 million to walk away, to disappear, to become a ghost in his perfect life. The restaurant around us buzzed with the quiet conversation of New York's elite, but at our table the silence was deafening. Is this a joke? I finally asked, my voice steadier than I expected. I smoothed down the borrowed designer dress that suddenly felt too tight, too fake, just like this entire situation. Xavier didn't blink. His steel-gray eyes remained fixed on mine, the same eyes that once looked at me with passion now cold as winter frost. I'm never less serious than when discussing money, Olivia. $10 million is generous by any standard. Generous. I tested the word, finding it bitter. And what exactly am I being paid for, Xavier? For the 3 months you spent pursuing me? For the nights you swore you'd never felt this way before? Or is this payment for damages to my reputation when you ghosted me without explanation? His jawline tightened, the only indication that my words had hit their mark. Xavier Stone, billionaire CEO of Stone Enterprises, wasn't used to being questioned. At 35, he'd built an empire that rivaled his father's, with a reputation for being brilliantly ruthless in business and coldly detached in his personal life. Until us. Isabel has returned, he said flatly, as if those 3 words explained everything. And in a way they did. Isabel Montgomery, Xavier's childhood sweetheart, daughter of his father's business partner, the woman everyone expected him to marry before she mysteriously disappeared to Europe 3 years ago. The woman whose shadow loomed over our entire relationship, though he'd never admitted it. So the prodigal fiancé returns and I get my walking papers. I took a sip of water, wishing it were something stronger. Wrapped around a check, how thoughtful. Don't be dramatic, Olivia. We both knew this wasn't forever. Did we? I challenged, memories flooding back. Our first meeting at the charity gala where I was working as an event coordinator. The way he sought me out afterward, persistent but never pushy. Weekends sailing on his yacht. Late nights talking about everything and nothing. The way he looked at me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve but desperately wanted to. Then nothing. Radio silence for 2 months. My calls unanswered, my texts ignored. Until his assistant called yesterday arranging this dinner. The situation is simple, Xavier continued, his voice dropping to ensure neighboring tables couldn't overhear. Isabel and I have history, complicated family connections, shared business interests. Our reconciliation makes sense on multiple levels. And I'm the inconvenient reminder of your 3-month lapse in judgment. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. You were never a lapse in judgment, Olivia. You were unexpected. The compliment, if it was one, fell flat. I glanced around the restaurant, taking in the crystal chandeliers, the genuine Monets on the walls, the diners wearing jewelry that cost more than my annual salary. A world I'd only briefly inhabited because of him. And the 10 million? What's that for exactly? Security. Privacy. A clean break. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Isabel has certain expectations about my past. This arrangement benefits us both. You can start the interior design business you've always talked about. Buy that brownstone you loved in Brooklyn. Live comfortably. My hand instinctively moved to my stomach, still flat beneath my dress. 7 weeks. That's how long I'd known about the babies. 7 weeks of morning sickness, doctor's appointments, and paralyzing fear. 7 weeks of wondering if I should tell the man who had so thoroughly cut me from his life that he was going to be a father. Not just a father. A father of triplets. The irony wasn't lost on me. Xavier Stone, who prided himself on controlling every aspect of his life, had just lost control of the biggest aspect of all. Retrim 2nd 800 words edit. He offered me $10 million to walk away for her. Then I introduced the triplets he never knew. The diamond necklace felt cold against my skin as Xavier's icy stare cut through me. $10 million to disappear from my life, he said, sliding the check across the table. I laughed, pulling out my phone to show him the ultrasound. You might want to rethink that offer. I'm carrying your triplets. His face turned as white as his expensive suit, the glass of whiskey shattering as it hit the floor. The great Xavier Stone, brought to his knees by 3 tiny heartbeats he never knew existed. The Harrington Foundation annual gala was exactly as pretentious as I remembered it. Crystal chandeliers hung from 30-foot ceilings, ice sculptures melted elegantly on marble pedestals, and New York's most powerful people air-kissed each other's cheeks while discussing tax breaks. 1 year ago I'd been working this event, clipboard in hand, making sure everything ran smoothly. Tonight I was crashing it. Getting in had been surprisingly easy. The security guard remembered me from last year and my old event coordinator badge still worked. The black gown I wore, the only formal dress I owned, hugged my still flat stomach. 12 weeks pregnant with triplets and I barely showed. The doctors said that wouldn't last long. I spotted Xavier immediately. Hard not to when he was the center of attention, accepting the Humanitarian of the Year award on the main stage. Isabel stood in the wings, resplendent in a silver gown that probably cost more than my yearly rent. She was beautiful in that cold, patrician way, all sharp cheekbones and perfect posture. Old money personified. Xavier Stone has demonstrated remarkable vision, not just in business but in philanthropy, the presenter was saying. His initiative to bring sustainable technology to developing nations has set a new standard for corporate responsibility. I watched him smile modestly at the praise, the same smile he'd given me when I complimented his cooking. Practiced. Perfect. Utterly false. Thank you for this honor, Xavier began his acceptance speech. But the real credit goes to my incredible team and to my partner in all things, Isabel Montgomery, who has always pushed me to be better than I am. The crowd applauded as Isabel stepped forward, taking her place beside Xavier. They looked like they'd been created in a lab specifically to stand next to each other, both tall, elegant, powerful. The perfect couple. Except for one small detail. Or rather, 3 small details, currently the size of plums, growing inside me. I waited until the ceremony concluded and the crowd dispersed toward the open bar. The plan was simple. Confront Xavier somewhere public enough that he couldn't make a scene, but private enough for dignity. I'd rehearsed what to say 100 times in my bathroom mirror. But plans rarely survive contact with reality. Olivia? Is that you? I turned to find Dr. Montgomery, my OB, smiling at me. She was in her 60s, elegant in a navy gown, champagne flute in hand. Dr. Montgomery. I didn't expect to see you here. My heart rate doubled instantly. I never miss the Harrington Gala. My husband's on the board. She looked me over with professional interest. How are you feeling? Any more morning sickness? Much better, thank you. I tried to shift the conversation, acutely aware we were standing barely 20 feet from Xavier. Good. Triplets are always high risk, so we need to keep that stress level down. Her voice carried in the acoustically perfect hall. Make sure you're taking those prenatal vitamins I prescribed. Triple the babies means triple the nutrients. I saw the exact moment Xavier heard. He was mid-conversation with a silver-haired man, champagne glass in hand. His head snapped in our direction, eyes finding mine across the room. The champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Conversations paused. Heads turned. Excuse me, Dr. Montgomery. I need to, but it was too late. Xavier was already cutting through the crowd, Isabel following in his wake, confusion written across her perfect features. Olivia. My name sounded like a judgment in his mouth. What an unexpected surprise. Is it? I replied, summoning every ounce of composure I possessed. I figured we had unfinished business after dinner last night. Dr. Montgomery looked between us, realization dawning. Oh. You must be Xavier Stone, he supplied, extending his hand mechanically. And you are? Dr. Elizabeth Montgomery. I'm Olivia's obstetrician. She smiled brightly, unaware of the tension crackling between us. Congratulations, by the way. Triplets. Quite remarkable. They run in families sometimes. Do you have multiples in your lineage? Xavier's face went through a fascinating series of expressions. Shock, disbelief, calculation, and finally, a carefully constructed neutrality. Beside him, Isabel had gone absolutely still, her champagne flute clenched so tightly I worried it might shatter too. How interesting, Isabel finally said, her voice dripping with venom disguised as honey. Xavier didn't mention you were expecting. Let alone triplets. I only just told him, I lied smoothly. Last night actually. Over a $10 million dinner, I presume? Isabel's smile never reached her eyes. How convenient for you. Dr. Montgomery's eyebrows shot toward her hairline. She took a strategic step back. I should find my husband. Olivia, don't forget your appointment next week. We'll do another ultrasound. As she retreated, Xavier finally found his voice. My office. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. It wasn't a request. I have work tomorrow, I replied, enjoying the flash of irritation across his face. He wasn't used to people saying no. Then I'll have Marcus clear my afternoon. 3 o'clock. His voice softened slightly, perhaps remembering we had an audience. Please, Olivia. We need to discuss this. My phone buzzed in my clutch. A text from an unknown number. I can help you handle Xavier. He's not who you think he is. Stone Tower loomed over Manhattan like Xavier himself. Imposing, unyielding, and impossible to ignore. 50 floors of glass and steel that seemed to touch the clouds. I'd only been to his office once before when he wanted to surprise me with a weekend trip to his villa in Santorini. That seemed like a lifetime ago now. The elevator whisked me upward, my stomach lurching in a way that had nothing to do with pregnancy. The mysterious text from last night weighed heavily on my mind. He's not who you think he is. What did that even mean? I'd been tempted to respond, to ask for details, but something held me back. Information was power, and right now I needed all the power I could get. Miss Reynolds, Marcus greeted me as the elevator doors opened directly into the executive suite. Xavier's assistant hadn't changed, still impeccably dressed, efficiently polite, and impossible to read. Mr. Stone is expecting you. May I offer you water, tea? Water, please, I said, suddenly parched. Pregnancy made me constantly thirsty. Marcus nodded, leading me through the reception area toward Xavier's office. The glass walls offered no privacy, a deliberate design choice. Xavier had once told me he believed in transparency in leadership. Ironic given how opaque he was in his personal life. Olivia. Xavier stood as I entered, coming around his enormous desk. He looked impeccable as always. Charcoal suit perfectly tailored to his athletic frame, dark hair precisely cut, the only hint of humanity a slight shadow under his eyes. Had he slept poorly? The thought gave me a flicker of satisfaction. Thank you for coming. His tone was all business now, the shock from last night carefully contained. Please sit. I chose the chair across from his desk rather than the more intimate seating area by the windows. This wasn't a social call. Marcus silently delivered my water and disappeared, closing the glass door behind him. It wouldn't stop anyone from seeing us, but at least they wouldn't hear. I've had my legal team draw up some paperwork, Xavier began without preamble, sliding a folder across the desk. A revised offer, given the new circumstances. I didn't touch it. I don't need your money, Xavier. 20 million, he countered immediately. Plus a penthouse in the Wellington building. Top schools guaranteed. Monthly allowance for the children. Full medical coverage. My jaw tightened. You think I came here to negotiate a better price? For our children. Our children, he repeated, the words clearly unfamiliar on his tongue. If they are mine. The accusation hung in the air between us. I'd expected it, prepared for it, but it still stung. You want a paternity test? Fine. I've got nothing to hide. I leaned forward. But let's be clear about something. I didn't get pregnant to trap you or extort you. In fact, I only found out after you disappeared from my life without so much as a text message. I was dealing with Isabel's miraculous return, I know. I cut him off. Quite the coincidence, isn't it? 3 months with me, then suddenly she's back and I'm disposable. A muscle twitched in his jaw. It's complicated. No, it's really not. You chose her. That's your right. But these babies exist, Xavier, and they're half yours whether you want them or not. And what do you want? His eyes narrowed. You could have told me at dinner. Instead, you ambushed me at a public event. After you ambushed me with a check for $10 million. I shot back. What did you expect? That I'd just take your money and disappear with your children? What kind of person do you think I am? I don't know what kind of person you are, he replied, his voice suddenly quiet. 3 months isn't enough time to truly know someone. And how long have you known Isabel? Your whole life? And yet you don't seem to know she's using you. His expression hardened. Be careful, Olivia. Why? Because I'm not blinded by her family connections and perfect pedigree? I saw her face last night, Xavier. She doesn't love you. She loves what you represent. He stood abruptly, turning toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? The great Xavier Stone, so brilliant in business, so blind in love. I knew I was pushing too hard, but I couldn't stop. Did you ever ask yourself why she left 3 years ago? Or why she's back now, just as Stone Enterprises is about to launch the most innovative tech platform of the decade? He whirled around, face flushed. That's enough. But something was wrong. His hand clutched at his chest, his breathing suddenly labored. He reached for his desk to steady himself, knocking over a stack of files. Xavier. My anger evaporated instantly. It's nothing, he gasped, but his legs gave out. He collapsed into his chair, loosening his tie with shaking fingers. I rushed around the desk. Xavier. What's happening? Should I call an ambulance? Before he could answer, the door burst open. Marcus rushed in, a small pill bottle in hand. Under his tongue, he instructed, handing me a tiny white pill. Help me loosen his collar. I did as instructed, fear gripping me as Xavier's face turned alarmingly pale. What is this? What's wrong with him? I demanded. Heart condition, Marcus muttered, pressing 2 fingers to Xavier's wrist to check his pulse. Stress trigger. He'll be all right in a minute. Heart condition. In all our time together, Xavier had never mentioned any health issues. He was the picture of fitness. He ran 5 miles every morning, for God's sake. The elevator dinged and Isabel's voice carried from the reception area. Where is he? I need to see him immediately. Marcus and I exchanged looks. Xavier's breathing was steadying, but he was in no condition for a confrontation. Don't trust anyone in this building, Xavier whispered, his fingers weakly grasping my wrist. Not even her. The hospital waiting room was a study in contrasts. Designer handbags on uncomfortable plastic chairs. Italian leather shoes tapping against industrial linoleum. Isabel paced near the window, her phone pressed to her ear, voice low but urgent. Marcus sat across from me, his usually immaculate appearance slightly rumpled, tie loosened. Has this happened before? I asked him quietly. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. 3 times in the past year. Getting worse each time. And he never thought to mention it? Xavier doesn't mention weaknesses. Marcus gave me a pointed look. To anyone. A doctor emerged from the double doors, clipboard in hand. Family of Xavier Stone? Isabel rushed forward. I'm his fiancée. I stayed seated, uncertain of my place in this tableau. What was I to Xavier now? Ex-girlfriend? Mother of his unborn children? Inconvenient complication? Ms. Montgomery, the doctor acknowledged. Mr. Stone is stable. The medication worked quickly, but we'd like to keep him overnight for observation and run some additional tests. Can I see him? Isabel and I asked simultaneously. The doctor looked between us, clearly sensing the tension. He's asked to see. He checked his notes, Olivia Reynolds first. Isabel's perfectly manicured hand clenched into a fist. That's absurd. I'm his fiancée. And I'm carrying his children, I countered, standing up. Triplets, in fact. I think that earns me 5 minutes. The doctor's eyebrows shot up, but he recovered quickly. Medical professionals were good at hiding their reactions. Room 412, he said. 5 minutes only. He needs rest. I followed him through the double doors, feeling Isabel's glare burning into my back. The hospital corridor stretched ahead, antiseptic and anonymous. Congratulations on the triplets, the doctor said conversationally as we walked. That's quite rare without fertility treatments. Apparently the Stone family is exceptional in all things, I replied dryly. Xavier's private room was dim and quiet, the beeping of monitors creating a steady rhythm. He looked smaller, somehow vulnerable in the hospital bed. His eyes were closed, face drawn. You came, he murmured without opening his eyes. Of course I came. I settled into the chair beside his bed. You collapsed right in front of me. He finally looked at me, his gaze clouded with medication but still sharp. You could have left. Taken Isabel's arrival as your cue to exit. Is that what you wanted? No. The word hung between us, surprisingly honest. Why didn't you tell me about your heart condition? Xavier sighed. It wasn't relevant. Not relevant. We were in a relationship. Were we? His voice carried no accusation, just genuine uncertainty. 3 months, Olivia. Weekends and evenings. I never even took you to my home. The truth stung, but I couldn't deny it. Our relationship had been intense but compartmentalized. Fun, passionate, but with clear boundaries that I'd been too infatuated to question. And now we're having triplets, I said quietly. Apparently so. His eyes drifted to my stomach, still flat under my blouse. Have you seen them? On an ultrasound. I nodded, reaching for my phone to show him the images I'd been carrying around for weeks, waiting for the right moment to share them. 3 distinct sacs, 3 tiny forms, 3 futures intertwined with ours whether we were ready or not. The door opened before I could pull up the images. A nurse entered, pushing an ultrasound machine. Dr. Montgomery ordered this, she explained cheerfully. Said we might as well check on the little ones while Mom's here, since she has an appointment scheduled for tomorrow anyway. Xavier and I exchanged looks. Dr. Montgomery hadn't mentioned sending anyone. I didn't request this, I said carefully. The nurse frowned, checking her tablet. It says right here, cardiac patient Xavier Stone, ultrasound for Olivia Reynolds, multiples check, ordered by Drive E. Montgomery. She looked up. Are you not Olivia Reynolds? I am, but... It's fine, Xavier interrupted. We'd like to see them. The nurse smiled, setting up the machine. First time dad, huh? You're in for a treat. I reluctantly lay back in the recliner she pulled next to Xavier's bed and lifted my blouse to expose my stomach. The gel was cold, making me flinch slightly. Sorry about that, the nurse said, pressing the wand to my abdomen. Let's see what we've got here. The screen flickered to life, gray shapes resolving into recognizable forms. And there they were, 3 distinct shapes, 3 rapid heartbeats, 3 miracles that had forever changed the equation between Xavier and me. Oh my, the nurse breathed. 3 strong heartbeats. Perfect development for 12 weeks. You've got some healthy babies here. I turned to look at Xavier, expecting to see shock or calculation. Instead, his eyes were fixed on the screen, an expression of pure wonder on his face. His hand reached out, tentatively hovering over mine before gently taking it. They're real, he whispered almost to himself. The nurse printed several images and handed them to me. I'll give you 2 a moment. As the door closed behind her, Xavier's gaze remained locked on the pictures. I never thought I could be a father, he finally said, voice rough with emotion. Why not? Family history. His jaw tightened. My father wasn't exactly a model parent. Before I could ask more, the door burst open again. Isabel stormed in, followed by an older woman I'd never seen before, elegant, silver-haired with Xavier's distinctive gray eyes. Mother, Xavier said, surprise evident in his voice. What are you doing here? Isabel spun toward me, fury etched across her perfect features. You need to leave. No. Family only. She is family, Xavier's mother replied before I could speak. Or have you forgotten she's carrying my grandchildren? Xavier's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a sleek building overlooking Central Park. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Manhattan skyline in all its glittering glory. Modern art adorned the walls, each piece probably worth more than my annual salary. It was exactly what I'd expected. Polished, expensive, impersonal. Your room is this way, Xavier said, leading me down a hallway. His movements were still careful, measured 2 days after his hospital release. I had Marcus arrange for some maternity clothes. If they don't fit, just let him know. I followed silently, still not entirely sure how I'd ended up here. The past 48 hours had been a whirlwind, Xavier's mother Victoria insisting I stay where proper care could be provided for me and the babies, Isabel fuming but powerless against the stone matriarch, and my own tiny apartment suddenly seeming inadequate for the task of growing 3 humans. This is temporary, I said, not for the first time. Until we figure things out. Xavier nodded, pushing open a door to reveal a guest suite larger than my entire apartment. A sitting area with a custom sofa, a bedroom with a king-sized bed, and an ensuite bathroom with a tub I could swim in. The pantry is stocked with the prenatal supplements Dr. Montgomery recommended, plus various pregnancy-friendly snacks. He gestured vaguely toward the kitchen. Mrs. Chen comes in to cook dinner at 6, but she'll prepare anything you want throughout the day. I set my small suitcase down, feeling distinctly out of place among the luxury. You don't have to do all this. Yes, I do. His voice was firm. Whatever is between us, those are my children you're carrying. Yesterday you wanted a paternity test. I still do. At least he was honest. But in the meantime I want them healthy and safe. I studied him, trying to reconcile this solicitous version of Xavier with the cold businessman who had offered me $10 million to disappear. Which was the real Xavier Stone? The ruthless CEO, the attentive father-to-be, or something else entirely? What about Isabel? I asked. She seemed pretty unhappy with this arrangement. A shadow crossed his face. Isabel has other priorities at the moment. Business matters. Of course she does. I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. The Stone-Montgomery merger waits for no woman, not even the fiancé. His eyes narrowed slightly. It's complicated. You keep saying that. I moved to the window, looking out at the park below. What exactly is complicated, Xavier? Your feelings for her? Your business arrangements? The fact that your ex is pregnant with triplets? All of it. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare display of frustration. My father's company is facing its biggest challenge since its founding. The board is divided. Competitors are circling. And now. He gestured vaguely toward my stomach. Now you have 3 more complications, I finished for him. I'm sorry my fertility has inconvenienced your corporate takeover. To my surprise, his expression softened. That's not what I meant, and you know it. He took a step closer. I'm trying to protect everyone, Olivia. Including you. Including them. Protect us from what, exactly? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He checked the screen, his face immediately closing off. I have to take this. Make yourself comfortable. We'll talk more over dinner. And just like that he was gone, leaving me alone in the beautiful, sterile apartment with more questions than answers. The next 3 days established a strange routine. Xavier left early each morning for the office, returning late in the evening. He'd ask about my day, inquire after my health and the babies, share a quiet meal, then retreat to his home office for more work. Always polite, always attentive, always distant. Meanwhile, I explored the penthouse, scheduled doctor's appointments, and tried to piece together the puzzle that was Xavier Stone. His bookshelves revealed a penchant for historical biographies and economic theory. His kitchen was fully equipped but barely used. His closet held dozens of nearly identical suits, organized by shade and season. It was the life of a man who valued order, control, and privacy. But there were contradictions too. A dog-eared copy of The Little Prince on his nightstand, a collection of vintage jazz records, a drawer full of colorful, whimsical socks that didn't match his public persona at all. On the 4th morning I woke to find a package outside my door, 3 tiny stuffed elephants, each a different color. No note, no explanation. Just a simple acknowledgement of the lives growing inside me. That same afternoon, Isabel arrived unannounced, her smile tight as she swept into the living room where I was reading. Olivia. Getting comfortable, I see. I marked my place in the book. Isabel. What brings you by? Just checking in on Xavier's investment. Her eyes flicked dismissively to my stomach. How are you feeling? Like I'm growing 3 humans. Tired mostly. She nodded, moving around the room like she owned it, trailing manicured fingers over furniture, adjusting items slightly as if marking territory. Xavier's working too hard, she said conversationally. This merger has him stressed on top of everything else. What merger? She paused, turning to me with practiced surprise. The Stone-Montgomery merger, of course. Didn't he tell you? Our companies are combining forces. The papers will be signed next month. I kept my expression neutral, though the news hit like a punch. Business arrangements between your families go back generations, I understand. Indeed. Which is why this living arrangement is so peculiar. He picked up a framed photo of Xavier at a charity event, studying it. Xavier is traditional at heart. Family means everything to him. I've noticed. She set the photo down, turning to face me fully. These babies change nothing, Olivia. Xavier will do his duty, provide financially, perhaps even play weekend father. But we both know where his future lies. With you. I couldn't help the skepticism in my tone. Her smile was glacial. With his birthright. The empire his father built. The legacy he's destined to continue. She moved toward the door, pausing with her hand on the knob. You should take the prenatal vitamins I left in your bathroom cabinet. The organic ones. Much better than those generic supplements. After she left, I went to check my bathroom cabinet. Sure enough, next to my regular vitamins sat an expensive-looking bottle of organic prenatal supplements. I studied them carefully, remembering Xavier's warning in the hospital. Don't trust anyone in this building. I placed the new vitamins in a plastic bag and set them aside. Later that evening, I caught Xavier on a phone call, his voice low and intense. Once she has the babies, we'll implement the plan. Not before. He noticed me in the doorway and quickly ended the call. Olivia. Did you need something? I stared at him, wondering if I'd just overheard plans for my own disposal. No, I said carefully. Nothing at all. The Stone Enterprises annual gala was the corporate event of the season, transforming the Metropolitan Museum's Temple of Dender into a showcase of wealth and power. Elegant tables surrounded the ancient Egyptian temple, executives in tuxedos mingled with politicians and celebrities, and champagne flowed as freely as the business deals being negotiated in hushed corners. I hadn't planned to attend. In fact, I'd specifically told Xavier I wouldn't be coming. But that was before I overheard his conversation about implementing the plan after the babies were born. Before I found the tampered vitamins. Before I realized that staying away meant surrendering whatever slim advantage I might have. So here I was, 16 weeks pregnant with triplets, wearing a custom midnight blue gown that cleverly disguised my growing bump, watching Xavier work the room with Isabel on his arm. They looked perfect together, the power couple everyone expected them to be. You clean up nicely. Marcus appeared at my elbow, offering a glass of sparkling water. Though I'm surprised to see you here. Are you really? I accepted the drink. Given everything that's happening, did you honestly think I'd stay home? His expression remained professionally neutral. Xavier was concerned the excitement might be too much for your condition. My condition is fine. It's my trust that's on life support. I took a sip, scanning the room. Where's Victoria? I thought Xavier's mother would be here. She chose to skip this year's event. Something about the company being in untrustworthy hands. Marcus's voice remained even, but I caught the slight emphasis. Interesting. In the 3 weeks I'd been staying at Xavier's penthouse, Victoria had visited several times, always warmly solicitous about the babies, always coolly dismissive of Isabel. There was clearly no love lost between Xavier's mother and his supposed fiancé. I need to speak with Xavier, I said, setting down my glass. Alone. Marcus glanced across the room to where Xavier was deep in conversation with a group of investors, Isabel hovering possessively at his side. That might be difficult tonight. Make it happen. I held his gaze. Unless you want me to make a scene. 20 minutes later, Marcus had somehow engineered a situation that required Isabel's attention in another part of the museum, and I found myself face to face with Xavier in a quiet alcove behind the temple. You shouldn't be here, he said, though his eyes traveled appreciatively over my gown. Doctor's orders were to avoid stress. Funny how stress-inducing it is to overhear the father of your children discussing secret plans for after the birth. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. What exactly are you planning, Xavier? To take the babies and discard me? To pretend I never existed? His expression hardened. You overheard a fragment of a conversation and jumped to the worst possible conclusion. Can you blame me? You offered me $10 million to disappear, then when that didn't work, you installed me in your penthouse like some kind of prized broodmare, all while your fiancé brings me suspicious vitamins and tells me I'm just a temporary inconvenience. Suspicious vitamins? He frowned. What are you talking about? I pulled a small plastic bag from my clutch, the sample I'd saved from the bottle Isabel had left. These. She specifically told me to take these instead of my regular supplements. Xavier took the bag, studying the pills inside with growing concern. Isabel gave you these? Left them in my bathroom cabinet. Said they were organic and better than my regular ones. He pocketed the bag, his expression darkening. I need to have these tested. Why? What do you think they are? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He checked it, then looked back at me with sudden urgency. We need to leave. Now. What? The announcement hasn't even. Olivia. His voice was deadly serious. I've been investigating Isabel and her brother for corporate espionage. They're trying to take over Stone Enterprises and they'll stop at nothing to succeed. I stared at him, trying to process this revelation. What are you talking about? The merger is a hostile takeover disguised as a partnership. They've been working to undermine my position with the board for months. And now? He glanced meaningfully at the bag in his pocket. Now they may be resorting to more direct methods to remove obstacles. And I'm an obstacle, I concluded. Because of the babies. Your heirs. Exactly. His hand moved to my arm, warm and steady. I kept you at arm's length to protect you, to keep you off their radar as much as possible. But I've been watching them, gathering evidence. That's why you've been so distant? Even while keeping me close. He nodded, eyes searching mine for understanding. I couldn't risk them knowing how important you and the babies have become to me. The admission hung between us, unexpected and unguarded. For the first time since our reunion, I glimpsed the Xavier I'd fallen for. Passionate, sincere, vulnerable beneath the polished exterior. So that conversation I overheard was about implementing the security plan after the babies are born. New identities for you if necessary, protective details, trust funds that Isabel and her brother can't touch. I felt a rush of relief, followed immediately by a wave of anger. Why didn't you just tell me? Why all the secrecy? The fewer people who knew, the safer you'd be. I couldn't risk. Well, what a touching scene. We both turned to find Isabel standing at the entrance to our alcove, her silver gown shimmering in the dim light, her smile razor-sharp. Xavier, darling, they're waiting for your announcement. Her eyes shifted to me, cold with fury. Though perhaps Miss Reynolds has an announcement of her own? Something about your tragic childhood secret? The one that drove you to build this empire. Xavier went completely still beside me. What are you talking about? Isabel's smile widened, savage and triumphant. Should I tell her about the fire? About what really happened to your father's first business partner? About why you can't sleep without checking the exits in every room? The color drained from Xavier's face. Whatever she was referring to, it clearly struck a nerve. Before either of us could respond, a sharp pain knifed through my abdomen. I gasped, doubling over. Olivia. Xavier's arms were immediately around me, his voice sharp with fear. What's wrong? Another pain, stronger this time. Something was terribly wrong. The babies, I managed, panic rising as I felt a warm trickle down my legs. Something's wrong with the babies. The hospital corridor was a blur as they rushed me toward the delivery room, Xavier running alongside the gurney, his hand gripping mine so tightly it almost hurt. The pain came in waves now, my body betraying the precious lives within. 16 weeks, I heard a nurse say. Way too early. BP dropping, said another. Get Dr. Montgomery on the line. Fear like I'd never known clawed at my chest. 16 weeks was too soon. Far too soon. The triplets' chances of survival at this stage were almost non-existent. I was losing them. Losing the 3 tiny miracles I'd already come to love fiercely. Xavier, I gasped between contractions. Don't let them die. Please. His face was ashen, the controlled CO nowhere to be found. In his place was a man terrified of losing something irreplaceable. I won't. I swear it. The delivery room doors burst open, a team of medical professionals swarming around me. Dr. Montgomery appeared, her usual calm demeanor replaced by focused urgency. Olivia, listen to me, she said, checking monitors and barking orders simultaneously. We're going to try to stop the labor. The bleeding suggests placental abruption with at least one of the babies, but we might be able to stabilize you. What caused this? Xavier demanded, refusing to leave my side despite a nurse's attempts to usher him out. Dr. Montgomery gave him a sharp look. Multiple factors can trigger premature labor, especially with triplets. Stress is a major one. Her eyes narrowed. Has she been under unusual stress recently? Xavier's jaw tightened, guilt flashing across his features. The vitamins, I managed between pains. Check the vitamins. Understanding dawned on Dr. Montgomery's face. He turned to a nurse. Get a tox screen started immediately. The next hour was a nightmare of medical interventions. 4 medications to stop the contractions, ultrasounds showing 3 rapid but increasingly distressed heartbeats, blood draws, monitors beeping with increasing urgency. Baby C is in distress, a technician announced, pointing to the ultrasound. Heartbeat dropping. Dr. Montgomery's expression grew grave. We may need to deliver if we can't stabilize. No. I cried. They're too small. Xavier's hand tightened around mine. What are the options? At 16 weeks, delivery means we lose them, Dr. Montgomery said bluntly. Our only chance is to stop the labor and maintain the pregnancy, but baby C's distress complicates things. We might have to choose. Choose what? Xavier asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Whether to risk all 3 by continuing to try stopping labor, or to focus on saving babies A and B by reducing the stress on Olivia's system. She met my eyes directly. It would mean letting baby C go. The room seemed to spin around me. How could I possibly make such a choice? How could I sacrifice one child to save the others? Is there any other option? Xavier's voice was raw, stripped of its usual authority. Dr. Montgomery hesitated. There's an experimental procedure. Dr. Chin at New York Presbyterian pioneered it for multiple pregnancies in distress. It's risky and insurance won't cover it. I don't care about the cost, Xavier snapped. Call him. Now. Her, Dr. Montgomery corrected, already reaching for her phone. And she's already on her way. I called her the moment you arrived. The next few hours passed in a haze of pain and fear. Dr. Chin, a tiny woman with steady hands and unshakable confidence, arrived with a specialized team. They performed a delicate procedure, inserting what looked like a miniature balloon into my uterus, somehow stabilizing baby C while administering medications that gradually slowed and then stopped my contractions. Throughout it all, Xavier never left my side. The man who had once offered me millions to disappear now refused to move even for basic necessities. Nurses brought him coffee that grew cold, untouched. His phone buzzed constantly until he finally turned it off completely. As dawn broke, Dr. Montgomery delivered the news we'd been desperately hoping for. We've stabilized the situation. All 3 heartbeats are strong again and the bleeding has stopped. The relief that washed over me was so powerful I burst into tears. Xavier's shoulders sagged, his composed facade crumbling completely as he pressed his forehead against our still-joined hands. However, Dr. Montgomery continued, you'll need complete bed rest for the remainder of the pregnancy. No stress, no work, no excitement. These babies are fighters, but they're still at high risk. She'll have everything she needs, Xavier promised, his voice hoarse from the night's ordeal. Whatever it takes. The tox screen came back, Dr. Chin added, her expression grim. There were trace amounts of an herb that's known to trigger contractions. Not enough to be accidental. Xavier's head snapped up, his expression hardening into something dangerous. The vitamins. Most likely, Dr. Chin agreed. Someone wanted to terminate this pregnancy. The realization was like ice water in my veins. Isabel hadn't just been trying to push me out of Xavier's life. She'd been trying to eliminate his heirs entirely. Where is she now? I asked. Gone, Marcus answered from the doorway, looking as though he'd aged a decade overnight. She disappeared from the gala right after you were rushed to the hospital. Security footage shows her leaving with her brother. Xavier stood, the exhausted father transforming back into the powerful CEO before my eyes. Find them. Use every resource we have. I want them found. Marcus nodded but hesitated. There's more. The merger documents were accessed last night. Digital signatures applied. The board's approval already processed. By morning, Montgomery Industries will have controlling interest in Stone Enterprises. Xavier's expression didn't change, but I felt his hand tighten around mine. It doesn't matter, he said finally. Nothing matters except these babies. It was the last thing I would have expected from the man who had once defined himself entirely by his company's success. Somehow, overnight, his priorities had fundamentally shifted. As the medical team departed to give us privacy, Xavier gently placed his hand on my stomach, where our three miracles continued to grow against all odds. I almost lost everything that really matters, he whispered more to himself than to me. But I won't make that mistake again. I covered his hand with mine. We're not safe yet. Isabel is still out there. His eyes met mine, steely with determination. There's someone else who was involved in this, he said. Someone much closer to me than Isabel. 4 months later, Xavier's penthouse had transformed. The sleek, impersonal space I'd first encountered was gone, replaced by a home with warmth and signs of life. The guest room where I'd initially stayed had become a nursery filled with soft colors and gentle light. 3 cribs stood ready, each with a hand-carved wooden mobile dangling delicate stars and moons. I stood in the doorway, one hand resting on my now enormous belly, watching as Xavier assembled the last of the changing tables. He'd insisted on building the furniture himself, the great Xavier Stone on his knees with an Allen wrench, refusing professional help because I want to create something for them with my own hands. You missed a screw, I pointed out, hiding my smile as he frowned at the instructions. Impossible. I followed every step. He examined the piece, then grimaced as he found the overlooked component. Engineering was never my strong suit. Says the man who revolutionized green tech manufacturing. That's different. I had people for the details. He tightened the final screw and stood, wincing slightly as his knees protested. There. Perfect. It was perfect, not just the changing table but the strange, unexpected life we'd built over the past months. After the near tragedy at the gala, everything had changed. Xavier had transformed from distant provider to constant presence, learning everything he could about pregnancy and infant care, attending every doctor's appointment, reading parenting books late into the night. The triplets were thriving against all odds, now at 32 weeks and remarkably healthy despite the earlier complications. Dr. Montgomery had cleared me to move around the penthouse last week, though leaving the building was still prohibited until delivery. Victoria called, Xavier said, coming to stand beside me. She'll be here tomorrow to help with the final preparations. His mother had been another surprise, fierce in her protection of me and the babies, ruthless in her pursuit of Isabel and her brother. When the Montgomery siblings had fled the country, Victoria had used connections I didn't want to know about to freeze their assets worldwide. Did Marcus find anything new? I asked, following Xavier to the kitchen where he began preparing the protein-rich snack Dr. Montgomery had prescribed for my afternoon regimen. Xavier's expression darkened. They tracked Isabel to Zurich. She apparently had a meeting with Lawrence. I nearly dropped the glass of water I was holding. Lawrence? Your mentor? The man who's been running your European division for 20 years. He nodded grimly. The security team recovered encrypted communications going back months. Lawrence was the inside man, feeding the Montgomerys information, helping orchestrate the takeover attempt. But why? He's been with your family forever. Your father trusted him implicitly. That's exactly why. Xavier handed me the plate of carefully arranged food. He resented being the trusted lieutenant rather than the general. When my father died and I took over, Lawrence expected to be made partner. Instead, I gave him the European division to run autonomously. I settled carefully onto a kitchen stool, the weight of 3 babies making every movement a strategic operation. So he was working with Isabel out of revenge? Partly. Xavier's jaw tightened. But mostly because I told him last year that I was considering stepping back from day-to-day operations. Creating a family office to manage our holdings. A family office, with no family. I understood now. He thought he'd lose his position if you ever had heirs. So when Isabel approached him with the takeover plan, he saw his opportunity. Use her to remove me, then push her out once they'd consolidated power. Xavier's hand moved unconsciously to my stomach, where one of the babies was delivering a particularly enthusiastic kick. What he didn't anticipate was you. And them. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Xavier frowned. We're not expecting anyone. Probably another baby gift from the board, I suggested. Since the truth about Lawrence and the Montgomerys had emerged, the Stone Enterprises board had rallied around Xavier with surprising loyalty, showering us with extravagant presents for the triplets. Xavier checked the security panel, then relaxed. It's Marcus. He returned moments later with Marcus, who carried a sleek leather portfolio. I've got the final papers for your signature, Marcus said, looking between us. Once these are filed, the family trust will be active. Xavier took the portfolio, but instead of signing immediately as he usually would, he handed it to me. You should review these first. It affects all four of you. I blinked in surprise. The Xavier I'd first met would never have suggested another person review his financial decisions. What exactly am I looking at? The restructuring we discussed. Transferring controlling interest in Stone Enterprises to the family trust, with you as co-trustee until the children reach majority. Marcus cleared his throat discreetly. I'll give you privacy to discuss this. Once he'd left, I stared at Xavier. Co-trustee? Of your entire empire. Our empire now. He sat beside me, his expression more vulnerable than I'd ever seen it. I'm not giving you a ring, Olivia. I'm giving you something more meaningful, equal partnership in everything I've built, everything I am. My throat tightened with emotion. This is a proposal? Of sorts. He took my hands in his. I don't want to repeat my father's mistakes, building an empire at the cost of a family. These past months have shown me what really matters. The babies. Not just them. His eyes held mine, sincere and unwavering. This family we're creating. The money, the company, the power, none of it means anything without people to share it with. I thought back to that first night when he'd offered me $10 million to walk away. How coldly he'd suggested I could buy a brownstone, start my interior design business, live comfortably. So this is more than $10 million? I teased, blinking back tears. He laughed, the sound warm and real. Considerably more. But the money is irrelevant. What I'm offering is a life together. Messy, complicated, but real. One of the babies delivered a particularly forceful kick, as if registering approval. Then another joined in, then the third, until it felt like a tiny dance party in my womb. I think they're voting yes, I said, placing his hand where he could feel their movements. Wonder spread across his face, an expression I'd come to treasure in these past months. Smart kids. They take after their mother. 3 weeks later, we returned to Le Bernardin, the restaurant where Xavier had once offered me $10 million to disappear from his life. This time, we arrived with 3 baby carriers, each containing a tiny, perfect miracle. Sophia, Ethan, and Lily Stone, born healthy at 35 weeks after a carefully managed delivery. The maitre d' ushered us to the same private table, cooing over the sleeping infants. Xavier held my chair, then sat across from me, looking both exhausted and exhilarated in the way that only new parents can. Full circle, he said, raising his water glass in a toast. Though the company is considerably smaller. Stone Enterprises had indeed contracted in the aftermath of the Montgomery scandal, shedding divisions and refocusing on core technologies. Xavier had surprised everyone by embracing the downsizing, implementing a 4-day workweek for employees with families, and opening an on-site childcare center at headquarters. Smaller but stronger, I replied, clicking my glass against his. Like certain tiny humans we know. He smiled, glancing at the 3 carriers arranged carefully beside our table. I offered you $10 million at this table. And I countered with 3 priceless treasures. The best negotiation I ever lost. He reached across the table, taking my hand. The greatest wealth isn't in our bank accounts, it's sleeping in these 3 cribs. And I wouldn't trade them for all the millions in the world. As if on cue, Lily opened her eyes, fixing her father with the intense gaze that already seemed to hold all the determination of both her parents combined. Xavier immediately lifted her from her carrier, cradling her with a natural ease that still surprised me. Ready to build sandcastles instead of empires? I asked softly. Empires fall, he replied, eyes never leaving his daughter's face. But families? Families endure.